My name is George Miller, and I turned 55 this past spring. I spent 3 decades in construction management, long enough to pay off a mortgage, raise a son, and believe I had earned a measure of respect. I built houses for other families, and I thought that meant mine would always have a roof strong enough to shelter me. That illusion shattered on a Saturday afternoon in May. The bells at St. Andrew's Church rang bright and proud, carrying across the neighborhood. Guests in pressed suits and dresses hurried up the stone steps, clutching gifts and smiling at one another. I wore the same navy suit I'd saved for special occasions, polished my shoes until I could see my reflection, and carried nothing but the pride of a father. At the top of the stairs stood a man in a black jacket with an earpiece. He lifted a hand as I reached the door. "Sir, may I see your name?" I pulled the invitation from my breast pocket. Copperplate letters spelled it clearly. Mr. George Miller. "I'm the groom's father," I said, handing it over with a small smile. He studied it, then shook his head. "You're not on the list," I chuckled, certain he was mistaken. "There's no wedding without me. My son is marrying today." His face didn't change. "Orders are that you're not to enter." Through the open doors, I caught a glimpse of my son, Daniel, adjusting his tie at the front of the church. He looked handsome, confident, surrounded by his groomsmen. Beside him stood Samantha, the bride, radiant in white. She leaned close, whispered something, and pointed toward me. Daniel's eyes met mine for a single moment. They were hard, cold, and final. Then he turned his back. The guard cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, sir. I have my instructions." Guests slowed as they passed, some whispering, some staring outright. A couple from my neighborhood muttered, "Isn't that his dad?" One cousin lifted a phone and started typing, no doubt firing off a message that would ripple through the family within minutes. I tried again, my voice sharper. "Listen, I paid for this wedding. The flowers, the hall, half the catering. My name is on those checks. You think I'd be standing here in a suit if I didn't belong inside?" The guard shifted uncomfortably but didn't move. That was the moment the truth set in. This wasn't a mistake, it was a decision. My own son and his bride had made it. They didn't want me there. I stepped aside as guests filed past. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked at me too long, pity mixed with curiosity. I stood on the sidewalk, organ music spilling from the open doors, while the world I had built walked past me. I thought of the overtime shifts, the mortgage payments, the tuition checks. I thought of teaching Daniel how to ride a bike, fixing his first car, standing in bleachers for every game. I thought of every sacrifice I had made because I believed fathers are the foundation children stand on. And there I was, barred from the very day my foundation was supposed to matter most. A sharp wind caught the edge of my suit coat. I pulled it tighter and forced myself not to show the tremor in my hands. Humiliation was bad enough. I would not give them the sight of me broken. But inside, something cracked. Respect, loyalty, family, words I had lived by for 55 years, sounded like cheap wallpaper peeling in the rain. That afternoon on the stone steps of St. Andrew's Church, I learned that in one breath, a man can be erased from his own bloodline. And that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the bells from St. Andrew's kept replaying in my head, mixed with the whispers of guests who saw me pushed aside. By midnight, humiliation had hardened into something sharper. I picked up my phone and dialed Daniel. He answered on the third ring, his voice low. "Dad, it's late." "Late?" My voice cracked. "You barred me from your wedding. That's not late. That's betrayal." There was a pause, then a sigh. "We didn't want a scene." I laughed bitterly. "A scene? You hired a guard to keep me out like I was a trespasser. That is the scene, Daniel. In the background, I heard music, the clinking of glasses, and voices raised in celebration. Then Samantha's voice cut in, sharp and clear. George, you embarrassed him enough. This was our day, not yours. You bring drama everywhere you go. Drama? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. I paid for half of that reception you're enjoying. I gave Daniel everything so he could stand tall today. Money doesn't buy respect, she shot back. Maybe if you'd been a better father, he wouldn't feel the need to shut you out. The words hit like a punch to the chest. I had worked overtime shifts, carried his tuition, fixed his car with my own hands. This woman had known him for 4 years, and she dared rewrite history with a single line. Put my son back on the phone, I demanded. Daniel returned, his tone flat. Dad, we just don't see eye to eye anymore. I need to start my life without your shadow hanging over me. My shadow? I whispered. Everything you have, your education, your car, this damn wedding, was built under my shadow. And you cut me out like I'm nothing? The line went silent, then clicked dead. He hung up. I sat staring at the screen, the blue glow reflecting on the windshield of my truck. My hands trembled, but not from cold, from clarity. Minutes later, a text came through, not from Daniel, but from Samantha. George, you're toxic. Daniel deserves peace. Don't contact us again. I read it twice, then a third time. Toxic. The word twisted like a knife. I had spent my life giving, and now I was poison in their story. I typed back, you barred me from the wedding I paid for. That's not peace. That's theft. But before I could send it, a gray bubble appeared. Message not delivered. She had blocked me. I sat in the cab until dawn, the sky paling over empty streets. Betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it comes with silence, with the click of a phone line gone dead, with a single word, toxic, used to erase 30 years of sacrifice. And in that silence, I realized this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. My son and his wife had chosen to cut me out. The wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was their announcement to the world. We don't need him anymore. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. I rolled over, eyes gritty from a night without sleep, and saw the family group chat light up. Aunt Marie, George, don't make this worse. Daniel deserves peace. Cousin Linda, please respect their boundaries. I typed a reply with stiff fingers. I was barred from my own son's wedding. I didn't make it worse. I showed up like a father. Before I could hit send, a gray banner appeared. You can't send messages to this group because you're no longer a participant. I stared at the screen. Then I opened Messenger. The group name had changed. The Clarks, Daniel and Sam's family. Beneath it, you have been removed by Samantha. I tried Daniel directly. A red exclamation mark blinked. Message not delivered. He had blocked me. I set the phone down on the counter and listened to the silence of my house. Coffee gurgled in the pot, but I couldn't taste it. The walls echoed with a kind of emptiness I had never known. In a single weekend, I had gone from father of the groom to ghost. By noon, the whispers had already spread through the neighborhood. At the deli, 2 women fell silent when I walked in. One leaned close to the other and said not quietly enough, "That's him, the father who got thrown out." I bought my sandwich and left without looking up. That afternoon, my neighbor Ralph leaned over the fence. "Heard what happened," he said gently. "That's cold, George." His pity stung more than the gossip. Back home, I opened Facebook without meaning to. There it was. Daniel and Samantha's smiling wedding photo under the stained glass, captioned, "Protect your peace. Choose your family." A dozen relatives clicked like. The comments were filled with congratulations, as if I had never existed. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. They hadn't just cut me out of the wedding. They had cut me out of the narrative. That night, I drove to my shop, a rented bay behind the lumber yard. The smell of cedar clung to the air, steady and grounding. I swept sawdust that didn't need sweeping, tightened screws that didn't need tightening. Work is a stubborn friend. It stays even when family vanishes. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Miller? This is Janet, the wedding coordinator from St. Andrews. I wanted you to know, I didn't realize they'd arranged for security to keep you out. That wasn't in my schedule. I only found out afterward. I'm sorry." "You don't owe me an apology," I said, but my throat was tight. "I do. And if you need a statement, I'll provide one." When we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Proof was starting to collect itself around me. Receipts, witnesses, the quiet solidarity of strangers who had seen what happened. That evening, Eddie Parker, my oldest friend, called. "You breathing?" he asked. "Barely." "Come over." I drove to his place. The Cubs game was muted on the TV. He handed me a beer and waited while I told him everything. The guard at the door, the phone call, the blocks. He whistled low. "That's ice cold." "I keep hearing that word," I said. "Cold, like winter moved in overnight." Eddie leaned forward. "So what now? You going to pound on doors they already locked?" "If I push harder, I'm the crazy one. If I stay quiet, I'm the absent one." "Third option," he said. "You build your own door. Paper, facts, witnesses. Don't scream. Document. Let the truth do the shouting." I almost smiled. Eddie always spoke in carpentry, but this time, his blueprint made sense. When I left his house, the night air cut sharp against my skin. For the first time since the church steps, I felt something other than humiliation. I felt direction. Isolation was real. I had been blocked, erased, gossiped about. But silence can be broken, and truth has weight. I wasn't done. The following Friday night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by paperwork. Receipts, contracts, canceled checks. All proof that I had paid for nearly $20,000 worth of a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. For days I had been turning them over in my hands, wondering if showing the truth would make me look bitter, or finally clear my name. At 9:17 p.m., I stopped wondering. I scanned each page into PDFs, arranged them neatly, and wrote a short post on Facebook. For those asking why I wasn't at Daniel's wedding, here are the facts. Venue deposit, $7,500. Catering deposit, $5,000. Flowers, $3,200. Photographer retainer, $2,000. All paid by me. On the wedding day, I stood outside while others walked past. You can decide what respect looks like. I clicked post and sat back. Within an hour, the notifications lit up like fireworks. Old co-workers, distant cousins, even neighbors who barely waved commented. Some wrote support. "That's cruel, George. You deserved better." Others hedged. "There are two sides to every story." By midnight, the thread had crossed 100 comments. The next morning at the diner, Ralph waved me over. "You've started a storm," he said, sliding me a mug of coffee. On the bulletin board near the register, someone had printed my post and tacked it up. Strangers were gathered around, reading it out loud. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. "George, this is Janet, the coordinator from St. Andrew S. I saw your post." If you need a statement, I'll give it. I was there. They told the guard to block you. I thanked her, throat tight. She wasn't family, yet she was willing to put her name on the truth. By evening, the post had spread beyond my circle. A cousin shared it to her network, and soon people I hadn't seen in 20 years were messaging me. Some offered sympathy. Others warned me to take it down before it damaged Daniel's reputation. But the damage wasn't mine to own. On Sunday, Father O'Malley left a voicemail. His voice was steady, pastoral. "George, I can confirm you were present outside the church and prevented entry. No opinions, just facts. If you'd like a letter, I'll write it." By then, Daniel and Samantha's glossy wedding photos had dozens of comments underneath them asking, "Where was your father? Why is he posting receipts?" Samantha tried to delete some, but more kept appearing. The story wasn't in their control anymore. For the first time since that church door closed in my face, the silence wasn't mine. It was theirs. They had erased me quietly. Now the truth was erasing their version of events, loudly, publicly, and with witnesses. 2 months crawled by after my post. The storm of comments slowed, but the silence from Daniel and Samantha remained complete. They had built walls around themselves, but walls don't stop bills from piling up. It was a Tuesday evening when my phone lit with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Dad?" Daniel's voice was hoarse, strained. I said nothing. He rushed on. We need to talk. Things are bad." "What kind of bad?" My tone was flat. "The mortgage. We're 3 months behind. Samantha lost her job in July and my hours got cut. The bank's sending letters." I leaned back in my chair. "That's tough." There was a rustle. Then Samantha's voice broke in on speaker, sharp and impatient. "George, this isn't the time for lectures. We just need help. You know you can." "I already helped," I said. "I paid for a wedding you barred me from." "That's different," she snapped. "This is about our home." I walked to the counter, opened the drawer, and pulled out the letter I'd received 2 weeks earlier. My name printed across the top, addressed from a bank I'd never borrowed from. I had assumed it was junk mail until I read the contents. Daniel and Samantha had taken a loan for their wedding, and my name was listed as guarantor, without my knowledge, without my consent. "I got the bank's notice," I said evenly. "You already dragged me into your debt." The line went quiet. Then I caught the whisper. "He knows." "How long did you think you could hide it?" I asked. "You signed my name onto your mess. You thought I'd never find out?" "Dad, please," Daniel's voice cracked. "We didn't have a choice. We wanted everything to be perfect." "There's always a choice," I said. "You just chose betrayal twice." Samantha cut in, voice rising. "You're supposed to be family. Families cover for each other." "Families invite each other to the wedding," I said coldly. "You locked me outside, then used my credit to pay for the party." Daniel tried again, softer. "We just need time, please. We'll fix it." "You'll fix it without me," I answered. "I won't carry your debt." I hung up before they could say more. My hand trembled, but not from fear, from clarity. That night, I called Rebecca Stone, the attorney Janet had connected me with. I read her the letter. She didn't hesitate. "That's fraud, George. If they signed anything with your name, the bank will chase you. We need to document everything. Witnesses, receipts, the loan notice. If they won't release you voluntarily, we'll force it." As I listened, the truth hit me harder than the church doors ever could. They hadn't just erased me from their wedding. They had written me into their debts. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to fight back. Rebecca set it up for a Tuesday morning. Neutral ground, her conference room downtown, glass walls, long oak table. She insisted on witnesses. Ralph came, still in his work boots, arms folded tight. Janet, the wedding coordinator, arrived with her binder tucked under one arm. Both had seen enough already to know the truth mattered. Daniel and Samantha walked in late. He looked pale, suit wrinkled, hair unkempt. She looked angry, her jaw set like concrete. They sat opposite me, holding hands as if that could shield them. Rebecca began calmly. "We're here to settle financial matters. Mr. Miller, please present your documents." I slid a thick folder across the table. On top, copies of my checks, flowers, catering, the hall. Underneath, the bank's letter with my name listed as guarantor. I had highlighted the line in yellow so there would be no mistake. Daniel's face drained of color. Samantha glanced at him, then back at me, her lips tightening. "Explain this," I said quietly. They said nothing. Ralph leaned forward, voice sharp. "I saw George stand outside that church while everyone else walked in. He paid for half of it and wasn't let through the door. Now you're hanging debt around his neck too? Shameful." Janet added, "I was the coordinator. They told the guard to block him. I watched it happen. This wasn't an accident." Rebecca kept her tone steady. The documents show nearly $20,000 in payments and a fraudulent loan guarantee. If you do not release Mr. Miller from liability and commit to reimbursement, we'll escalate legally. Finally, Daniel spoke, voice trembling. "Dad, we were desperate." I leaned forward. "Desperate people ask. They don't steal. I gave you everything, and you threw me away. But I won't let you write my ending." The words hung heavy. Samantha tried to argue, but Rebecca slid a packet across the table. Formal agreements. "Sign these. Release your father's liability. Acknowledge repayment. Do it now, or tomorrow we file suit." Daniel's hand shook as he picked up the pen. Samantha hissed, "This is ridiculous." But he bent over the paper anyway. His signature looked broken, jagged. When it was done, I stood. No shouting, no theatrics. Just truth laid bare, witnesses in the room, and signatures that couldn't be erased. For the first time since the day of the wedding, the weight shifted off my shoulders. They had tried to erase me. Instead, they had exposed themselves. The papers were signed, the folder closed, yet my chest still felt heavy. Winning on paper doesn't untangle blood. 3 nights later, a call came from a number I didn't know. Against reason, I answered. "Dad?" Daniel's voice cracked. I said nothing. "I'm sorry," he blurted. "We went too far. Samantha." She pushed, but I let it happen. "Can we start over?" I closed my eyes. Memories crowded in, teaching him how to ride a bike, patching the dent in his first car, clapping from bleachers at games no one else bothered to attend. A father doesn't forget those things. Love doesn't vanish just because trust is gone. "You cut me out of your wedding," I said evenly. "You signed my name to a loan without asking. You blocked me like I was a stranger. Do you know what that felt like?" Silence stretched, thick and guilty. "I'll always be your father," I continued, "but I won't be your safety net again. Love and money are not the same. One you can never lose from me. The other, you forfeited." Samantha's voice came faint from the background, sharp and dismissive. I didn't let her finish. "Listen carefully," I told him. "I forgive enough to stop carrying rage, but forgiveness doesn't mean trust. From now on, our relationship is words only. No loans, no rescues, no second chances with my wallet. If you want respect, you'll have to earn it the hard way. There was a long pause. Finally, he whispered, I understand. The line went dead. I set the phone on the counter, palms pressed flat. For the first time in months, I felt calm. Forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was a boundary, a clear line no one could mistake again. 3 weeks later, my kitchen table was finally clear. The folder marked closed sat on a shelf. Receipts, letters, the signed release from the bank. Proof had done its work. I no longer needed to stare at it every morning like a wound that refused to close. On a Saturday, I walked to the diner. Ralph waved me over before I even sat down. He poured coffee into my mug. Feels different seeing you here, he said. It is different, I answered. Near the register, the bulletin board still carried the printout of my post. Some people looked at it, then at me. But no one whispered this time. Whatever judgment they had, it no longer touched me. That afternoon, I drove to the lake with Eddie. We sat side by side, fishing poles resting against the rail, silence stretching easy between us. Finally, he said, You're breathing lighter. I am, I told him, for the first time in a long while. I looked across the water and realized something. I didn't need Daniel's approval to know I was a good father. I didn't need Samantha's excuses or the family's silence to measure my worth. What I needed was my own voice, steady, unshaken. They had tried to erase me, but I had written myself back, not with rage but with truth, not with begging but with boundaries. I'm still a father. I'm still a man who built, paid, and stood present. But I'm no longer the man waiting outside a locked church door. I'm the one who walked away from it and kept moving. Sometimes the only way forward is to choose yourself. What would you do? Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories Men, U55 America.